I'm Sam Brad, and I'm Italian and Scottish, and I have had the pleasure and the privilege for the last 2 days to be here at the Yakstuff Compassionate Leadership Gathering. And what I'd like to do is just explain my role. So as a graphic recorder, I listen deeply to the conversations in the room, and then I draw what's happening. And I think some of the practices that happen with graphic recording are ways of also upholding and honoring the compassionate leadership work. So we talk about integrity and accountability and the reciprocity with the conversation and the visuals going together. So this poster was the opening, and the call was about what was, what is, and what will be. And so I began with the land and the laws that welcomed us here from the Squamish, and those relationships are the arc at the bottom. That blue thread from the land and the water and the canoe pulling in carries all the way into the future. So this is the continual thread. On top of the ancestors and the laws and the traditions is the what is. And from the seed, there are new skills, talking about the cohorts being the power of learning together, and then also the response for the what is because of the unmet needs that are in the system and in ourselves and in our teams. So we shift then into the future and asking what will be. So staying open to change, talking about all the practices, and then meeting needs. And here we have 2 trees, and I was working with cedar boughs that were hung up behind my easel. And so I wanted to actually bring in and draw the cedar as a way to also ground me in doing the work so I could stay present and focused and as attentive as I need to be. So the roots of the present and the future come and meet back. So this one has a bit of a holding underneath. So this was the afternoon of day 1, and there was drumming to welcome us back by Chief Atleo and Heather. And so we're talking about redefining leadership, and this idea here is both like data and the system and the interconnections of it from the teachings, from Indigenous-led teachings that then help us with this big red swoop that lead us with heart. And so part of the conversation here was about the journey of cultural safety, the work of when you're invited showing up, what can ground us in the tent today, and the land around us, have the relationships, not just teaching at somebody, but walking and talking, for example. And so all of the part that is supported by this banner are reminders about recentering humanity, letting go of shame, moving to humility, and then again, being open to vulnerability because it's how we become more. This is the poster from day 2, and the important structure or the framework in this poster is that we are both the agents of change and we are not separate from the system. So sometimes it's easy to point, to be like, the system is over there, but actually the system is us. And so how I've drawn it is that there is this person in the foreground with a heart. And so the heart is both offering compassion back to the self, but also the system is offering compassionate leadership out to others. And it's being received on this side by the system made up of thousands and thousands of hearts. So we can see it close up because it's an individual, and then here the hearts get smaller because we can zoom out. And so this first loop is part of a 2-loop model where we want to let go. And so what is here that is cascading like a living system into compost or into the ground again, are all the things that we need to let go. And at the same time, the system is starting new and growing up. And so we start with connection, and the connection allows us to build safety, which forms into trust. And then once we have that trust, we can start to practice or embed and be intentional about the work of compassionate leadership, and then reinforce it with the support. And so the second loop is the emerging system. So we have choices about how we want to stay in a legacy or what's not working. We can let go of it. And here, this is the transformation. And so someone in the room said, water finds a way and water will get us through. And so as the first loop closes, the water brings us up to the vision of a whole system of wellness, of trust, of new stories, of culture change. This graphic recording is the afternoon of day 2. And it begins with a choice of choosing the status quo which is this darkness and loss. And these are the structures that the system currently upholds. And the system is operating exactly as the system is currently designed. But we have choices. And if we move instead into the circle of compassionate leadership, from that, much more is possible. So from the compassionate leadership, we can find a little opening. We can choose connection. And then from that comes all of the teachings in blue. So the freedom to become ourselves again, remaining in balance, upholding Indigenous laws, seeking to understand, new practices, staying open, centering emotions and care, reconciliation and action, and resurgence, and then filling our hearts. And you can see the brown road is the journey. So we could choose the status quo, or we could choose this. And if we choose this transformation, what happens is the road actually creates this arc, this rainbow, this joy that is so much bigger and more possible than where we started with in the small brown road over here. So I hope that the intention behind the opening at the end is that when we do this work of compassionate leadership, when we practice and we continue to practice, it is this idea of becoming more. And so I just want to thank everyone for their compassion in this room, all of the important work that you're doing to transform. And again, thank you so much for the invitation.